Hey guys, it's Nemo, and today's topic is going to be a bit of contentious, I guess, a point of contention. And before we get into it, I'm going to show you something. So I'm going to tell you today's topic. Today's topic is, does win rate matter? Yes, and I can hear you all now. I can just hear it. Now, before we start, the reason that I'm going to show you something is because you're going to think that, yes, only a scrub lord who hasn't got a very high win rate is going to make a video about does win rate matter. But go up to here and we'll go to my summary. Now it says 57%. So 57% win rate. Okay, that's pretty good when you think that only 3% more and I'll be a Unicum player at 60%. The average win rate of World of Warships is about 48%. So now that you know it's not just some scrub lord with a really bad win rate making a video about does win rate matter, let's get into it a bit. So let's start with win rates divisional versus solo. Divisional versus solo, you can't really compare. Say there's a player who has a 52% win rate solo, and there's a player who has a 75% win rate, but he's only ever played divisional play. That means that the guy who plays solo is totally left to his teammates. He's left to these other 12 or 11 random players to help him out. And most of the time when you play solo, there is no communication at all, whereas a guy with a 75% win rate who has only ever played divisional play has had at least a quarter of the team on comms telling him what that they're backing him up. I'm here to help. And before we go any further, I'll just go back to that 48% win rate. I had a look at the Sharks versus Eagles thing, when you first choose a team for the day. Well, the other day on the weekend, it was about, now I didn't know how many players are on World of Warships, so I thought maybe 500,000 over the 4 servers or something like that, because you have a look at the amount of players, the amount of players online right now on the Asian server is 2,325 as I'm making this video. I've only ever seen it get up to about 15,000 at its highest that I've been online. It probably gets up to higher. But during the weekend, there was something like 4 million people spread over the Sharks and the Eagles team. So if we go to 4 million people and the average of 4 million is 48%, my maths isn't very good, so if anyone wants to work out the numbers, go for it. I'd be happy for you to do that and whack it in the comments. That'll be awesome. That means that there's at least 2.5 million people online who haven't got a 50% win rate, who are a 48%, or lower, 50% or lower, whatever it is. So when you look at the people who have 48% win rates, when you're judging people by their win rate, you have a look at that and you say, well, you're not very good. Those sorts of things there. But as we're going to go into it, we're just talking about the 50%, 52% win rate guy who plays solo all the time versus the 75% win rate guy who plays in a triple division all the time. You can't really compare. It's almost like RNG. RNG with shells, RNG with players almost, because you have, so RNG, for anyone who doesn't know, is a random number generator. That's how you can be as accurate as you like in the game, you can shoot as well as anyone, but you always have this random number generator which will dictate whether you penetrate, over penetrate, hit citadels or whatever. So even though you can be accurate as you like with your shots or torpedoes, there's always going to be that element of RNG, that almost like luck. So the reason we can't compare is because one player is always playing at the mercy of the other 11 players. Now 11 players, as you might know, who come on and play randomly together with you to make the 12-man team, could be any factor in the game that just throws that game off. It might be someone who has a poor internet connection, it might be someone who has a poor PC, so they don't actually come into the game until 5 minutes into the battle. 20-minute battle of 5 minutes is already gone. A lot happens in 5 minutes. By the 15-minute mark, a lot has already happened. You have players who might be playing a ship they're not comfortable with, and they haven't got anyone to work them for. Yeah, it might be tier 5 versus tier 7, where you have tier 5 ships who are overpowered for tier 4 and 5 because they play each other, because they have to match, they have to be able to compete with tier 7. So you've got this, because of the +2, -2 matchmaking, you've got ship classes that are made to challenge each other. So tier 5 has to be able to stand up to tier 7 at least a little bit. You know, you look at the things like the Julio or the Oktoberskaya, you know, these two battleships, which clearly when they play in tier 4 are overpowered for tier 4, but it's because they have to be powerful enough for balance reasons to play against tier 7. So, you know, the matchmaker, that's just a whole nother video on its own, totally other video. So whereas a guy who plays in a division all the time with 2 other players, even if they're playing tier 5 versus tier 7, they can set the division up enough. If you have a look at my video, the proper division, the destroyer, the cruiser and the battleship, if they set up a division that's a proper division, or even having coordination in a 3-man battleship, 3-man destroyer or 3-man cruiser division, the coordination between them, remember that 3 players together is a quarter of your whole team. You can set it up enough that even if you're playing tier 5 versus tier 7 or tier 8 versus tier 10, that you will have an impact on the game. You will cover each other enough and support each other. So win rate's really, really hard to judge a player's stats by. What happens if, and I'll use myself as an example, one weekend I was online and I had 10 wins in a row, and so say it was a Saturday night, 10 wins in a row, and I thought, wow, this is really good, but those 10 wins in a row were absolute walkovers. The next weekend I went online, this is earlier on in my gameplay, so last year I'd say, we had, the next weekend I had 10 losses in a row. And you know what? For the whole entire week between Saturday and Saturday, I hadn't changed anything in my game style. I hadn't changed what I was doing. I hadn't changed the ships that I was playing, because I was grinding up 3 or 4 different lines at a time. And I lost them all, and a lot of them were walkovers, you know. So you can't throw win rate in when everybody knows that the weekends are totally unpredictable, for example. So to break down win rate, you would have to pit certain players against each other at certain times of the week. So say Wednesday, Thursday nights. Wednesday, Thursday nights on the Asian server seems to be the nights where the games are most balanced, You haven't got as many reckless players doing YOLOing, so you know you only live once, I'm going to charge the enemy team and just get obliterated. It seems to be more standard play. It's a lot more even, as I said, balanced. So win rate comes down to so many different things. Now what happens if we pit this guy who has a 52% win rate solo versus one of these guys who plays 75% win rate triple division all the time? I reckon, and I would not be surprised if the guy with the 52% win rate beats him in a one-on-one all day, hands down. Why? Because the guy with the 52% win rate has to learn to do things on his own, whereas the other players always got backup. So other things that you could affect with win rate are things like carry potential. Now when we talk about carry potential, for those of you who are unaware of carry potential, is the ability to put the team on your back and either have a dominating game where you kill most of the enemy players and help your team win, or you just put the team on your back and kill all the enemy players and win. There are not as many players in the game that have carry potential as those that do not. Everybody has a chance to carry a game. You see some players where they have the best game of their life and they get a Kraken or a double Kraken. But that game is once. They've played maybe 3,000 games and all of a sudden they have this amazing game. But then the next game they go back to just doing what they normally do. They don't play any different. It comes down to who's on the enemy team. Now I spoke to a fella a while ago and I absolutely agree with what he said, is that most battles are not won by the good players carrying the team. Most battles are won by the average or under average players throwing the game. More people are losing their games because it's been thrown than by people who are able to carry. They're winning the games by someone carrying. So that again is another factor in what affects win rate. Other things to increase your win rate or to have win rate, the differences in win rate are a battleship, for example. If a battleship decides to play a central role where he can cover one or two caps, help out his destroyers by killing cruisers and attacking other destroyers, and then you have another battleship who decides that he's a flanking Shimakaza who can go all the way around the border of the map with his 40 knots and then get behind the enemy. The win rate there is going to be different. The win rate for the battleship that sits in the middle and helps out, or positions himself correctly around the capture zones to affect the battle, is going to have a higher % win rate as well than what a player who sends his battleship down the one line is going to have, because he's taken himself out of the battle down there. So gameplay, game style will affect win rate. Other things you can't really... Now you could say that yes, his game style is affecting his win rate, so yeah, win rate in that way would matter. It means that he knows what he's doing a bit more. But is that the case? Is that the case? Does it mean that a player like myself who has a 57% win rate versus a player who has a 48% win rate, do I know what I'm doing? I'd like to say yes, I do know what I'm doing, versus the guy who has a 48% win rate, but sometimes we all have mishaps. A slight lack in judgment could get your ship destroyed and you could be the one that loses the battle. Never know. Never know. So win rate. I think for you guys who love win rate, now I I consider my win rate something that I know what I'm doing, okay? So for me, my win rate is that the higher my win rate, the better I'm doing. Yes, there are a lot of players that don't care about win rate, that just turn the stats off and play the game. But I like to play to win, and I like to play to improve myself. Whenever I play a game, I like to learn the mechanics, learn the basics, learn how to be the best that I can be. We have the unofficial motto of our house is you play to win or you don't play at all. Now that means that's anything. My brother and I used to play rugby union and rugby league, and we always played to win. So we would give it everything we had around us. You know, on a rugby league team there's 13 players. Now 2 of us might have been working together because we were brothers. We knew how we played for. I played 20 years of rugby league and union. You know, since I was a little kid. So we played together for that long. We knew how each other played. But the other 11 players on the team didn't. They didn't know how we played. They hadn't played long enough with us. So, and even though that we were putting in everything that we had, we'd still have losses because you're at the mercy of other players. It's the same in Warships. You're at the mercy of other players. If every player on the team gets 1 kill, that should be job done. Now, a good way to increase your win rate is to play the objective. There are capture points on every map, whether it's domination, whether it's epicenter, or whether it's standard battle. You know, 3 or 4 capture points for domination. You capture those, you start ticking up points faster than the enemy. You capture the epicenter. In epicenter, you start ticking up points faster. You capture the enemy's base, which is essentially like capture the flag for all those COD games and things like that. There are objectives. The players who play the objective will have a higher win rate than the players who do not. So, does win rate matter? Well, I'll leave that one up to you. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.